2020, Hamilton Leithauser releases his album, The Love of Your Life. He joins me now to discuss the writing and make of this vivid, intricate and impassioned record. Hamilton, let's go right back to the very start of making this record. Are you a writing all the time kind of guy, or is there a moment when you sat down and thought, right, I'm starting a record here?
I am. I write constantly. I started writing and making this record while I was making I Had a Dream That You Were Mine, which I was doing with Rostam. And during the big breaks that he and I took, we would write songs together and then split up for a couple months and then come back. And during those off months was when I started this. And I do it at home, and at my home studio, which I'm sitting in right now. Actually, this is my studio. So I built this so that I could try and make a record by myself. At the beginning of the Walkman, we had our own studio, and I always thought that being able to write and record your final product simultaneously was the best way of capturing spontaneous energy and keeping the songs feeling fresh. And I actually really prefer that process to the process of being in a room with a lot of people and writing it all together, even though that can have its own benefits too. So I started writing and recording this, 3 years ago, and I'd say I didn't hit my stride until about a year ago.
So how much was building the studio part of creating this record?
It was everything. I had so much fun doing the music because that's something that I'd always had other people there helping me with, and I worked with great musicians over the years, most recently Paul Maroon and Rostam. So doing like the drums and the bass and the ground up instruments was so exciting, but I spent money and time going into a professional studio, and I brought my drummer up from Texas and we did all that, but in the end I just thought it was all so sterile, and I didn't use any of it, and it was very professional sounding and totally boring. And that's just not the record I wanted to make at all. I wanted to do something that just captured like the moment right when you write the part and you record it, and maybe it's not perfect, but it's got a little bit of that fun, or sometimes you're off key or something, but there's just something about it that's like, oh, that's what I want to keep, and that's why I'm excited about that song. And that's everything of the record for me.
So I think you call the studio the Struggle Hut, is that right?
Struggle Hut. My friend Sky Shelsett from the Fleet Foxes came up with that.
Because obviously people who have listened to records imagine, when one person goes in the room and does everything for a record, because they've heard a song and they've seen a band play live, everyone sort of can understand how that might happen. But in reality, how hard is it to actually just do a record by yourself? It's
crushing. I thought I was going to give up at points. The real struggle for me this time was... I really enjoyed making the music, and it was so fun finally being the main piano player and the drummer and stuff like that. I really had fun making the tracks. But every time I would start singing, I'd hear my own voice, and I'd be like, oh no, here comes that guy. Oh no, I can't take that guy again. I can't listen to that guy anymore. And I couldn't get past square one. I really got to the point where I was trying to sing in different voices, and I was trying to... And you get to some weird spots where it's really ridiculous sounding. But I toyed with the idea of hiring another singer to sing on my solo record, but have another singer. Anyhow, probably a year and a half ago, I decided that what I loved about 18 tracks that I had, maybe a few more even, and I needed to figure out if I was going to ever turn these into songs the way that I saw they should be done. I needed to figure out a new approach for singing. It wasn't working just trying to sing on top of these in the way that I'd always done. So what I did is I thought, I'm going to go the reverse. Usually what I've always done in my life is written a melody right over a song, and then I had the words hopefully come pretty quickly with the melody that you write, and then that dictates the way the song's going to go. At first I figured it would be something like poetry, but it ended up being more like prose. And I wrote sort of a character sketch about people that I know. I wrote one for that song, The Old King, which is the last song on the record, about a guy I know who he's just sort of funny and sad and ridiculous at the same time, and kind of a complicated friend. So I just wrote a story about him, basically just outlining facts and little, anecdotes. And I actually wrote the entire thing out on several paragraphs. And so I took the music, and actually at the time it was a very slow 6/8 Pogues kind of ballad. And I started singing over that, And it was just so sad. The song was just miserable. So I went to this other thing, which was this piano part that Paul Maroon had written, and I started singing over that, just sections of the thing that I'd written, and it started sounding wistful, but at the same time uplifting and a little funny. And I added my daughters singing in the background to make it. It has kind of a haunting, but also sort of adorable like sound. And so you have no idea what the chorus is going to be. You have no idea what the name of the song is going to be, or what what details are going to be included into it. But then I ended up wanting to make the song like 6 minutes long. Originally, it was like a minute and 10 seconds or something, and I ended up making it like 6 minutes long. And I tried to include as much detail about this guy as I could. And so in the end, I got a song that to me is really like unquestionably about this one guy, and I know the whole story. But when I take a step back, I hope that translates. I don't know how well that translates to other people because, you know, it's a song. So sometimes you got to repeat the chorus, and you got to cut out the narration and the plot points or whatever. So, you know, and I like to have a lot of dialogue, so the narrator switches people back and forth. So if you're just going to sit down and read the lyric, it might not exactly come across that way, but when you hear it as a song, to me it captures the right vibe for what I wanted it to be.
I listen all night. The drinks were free, but soon his bitter heart got wearing on me. Go on, the night is young. My throat is dry, but I ain't done. No, I ain't done. The loves of your life.
Once I got that song written and recorded, I thought of another guy that I'd met on the Cross Sound Ferry, which is this auto ferry that I take every summer with my daughters between Orient Point, New York, and New London, Connecticut. And we get on this thing at like 9:30 in the morning, and you park your car and you go up to the top, and there's like the snack bar and all these families and sort of going across the water. And there's always like a couple people sitting at the bar. You know, they didn't just get on the ferry at 9:30. They've been on the ferry, and they, you know, probably came from New London, if not from Orient Point before that. And they're, you know, they got their dollars on the bar, and they're just there for the ride. And it's kind of a funny crowd. And I ended up talking to this one guy who was hilarious and kind of a down and out but lovable guy that I found myself kind of rooting for, and afterwards thinking about him. And I had this music. This is another one that I wrote with Paul, actually, because he had sent me this guitar riff, and I switched the time of the guitar riff that he sent me. I wrote this whole thing out about the guy and his daughters and his sad life and his lonely time on the water, and I wanted to just like make it as if he's just talking himself into like a frenzy. And one of the main melodies I really like is the da 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 da. It's sort of got this monotonous, like riding around kind of sound to that melody, so I thought that worked well with those words. And I almost wanted it to sound like a British World War I naval song, where the guy would just be working himself up in so sort of self-wallowing drama. But for some reason, I find it likable. I get a kick out of it, and I like the idea of like bodies come and bodies go, because he's just really dragging himself through all this emotion, but he's just sitting there riding back and forth on the ferry, and he really just a sort of friendly guy who wants someone to talk to. And so that's the guy that I wrote about in that song.
So having these sort of two characters helping the lyrics of that song, is that then you sort of set upon that as a structure for the rest of the record?
Yeah, so what I did is once I had those two songs there, I thought, you know, what would be really fun is if I had one person per song as I went along. And I wrote about some other people that I had just met that were strangers, and I wrote about a bunch of friends. And every one of the people is real. And most of the stories are real, but I embellish some. Some of the people who I don't know very well, I thought it was kind of fun to add what I thought were sort of funny details about them. Sometimes you write about somebody, and then there's a song like The Garbage Men, where I only wanted 2 verses or whatever, and a few choruses. So out of this whole big thing I took 7 lines, 8 lines or something like that, and that's that. So for an outside person, maybe they wouldn't really see the character as clearly in something like that song. But to me, it's exactly as about a person as the Crosstown Ferry song is.
You say I'll find a job. That's right, laughing like you do, chewing your fingers to the bone, spitting your nails into the pool, till the garbage men go by, till the garbage men go by. All the playboys dance on the blacktop like a swarm of flies.
Are you expecting any calls from friends saying, is that song about me? Or?
Yeah, you know, I've been thinking about that. I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. There's only about 2 that are going to be a problem. I might have to write an email.
It's an interesting approach to a record. In the past, I think I've said to you, you know, some of your songs, it feels like you're throwing away novels or novellas with the lyrics, because they could be entire short stories and things. With this record, it sounds like almost the opposite way around, where you create the short stories and then turn them into lyrics.
I felt like when I was doing the last record, that I Had a Dream That You Were Mine, I felt like the whole time I was writing about one person, which is maybe I thought it was best distilled in that song, The Bride's Dad. And I didn't write the whole record about that guy, but I did think that there was this like voice going through the whole thing, which I guess is my voice, but it was a voice of a character, but I didn't see it till the end. And when I started this record, I thought instead of just picking up a new voice for a record, I would have a new voice for every song.
And how much did the characters then in turn influence the music that you created and sort of change the songs as you...
The thing that was so fun was to take something like The Old King and sing it over this slow Pogues waltz and then think, man, that's just miserable. And then take it to this other song and have it work out. Or take the Stars of Tomorrow was I tried to sing it on this big rock song and it was just ridiculous. And it has sort of a almost corny title that I thought was, I kind of thought was kind of funny because it matched this woman's personality that I met. And I switched it to like a dreamy, almost sort of Beach Boys sounding waltz. And it's where the words met the music that suddenly added a new, that could be that kind of more sort of fun song. Or it could be, it's sad in a way that is charming. I had never done that before. I had never successfully taken a set of lyrics from one piece of music to another. I have failed doing that many, many times over the years. I remember doing that on the last record and lifting lyrics and putting it onto a different song and then ruining the other song, ruining the lyrics, ruining the first song. That's it. It's all over. But this time, there was not a single set of lyrics that was ever originally tried on a song that made it. Every first try I did didn't work out, and I had to move the lyrics. They were originally intended for a set of music, and I had to move them to another track, and that's where they took hold. So it was very surprising every time.
It's interesting that The Stars of Tomorrow is the track that you felt you had to move, because obviously I'm right in saying that the story comes from a woman who you met on a park bench who just poured her life out to you without being asked, really.
She did. I was not asked. She sat down. She was definitely high on some drug, but she was telling me this story of, like her husband and moving from Poland, and the husband and her, and it had been this big fight, and the more she talked, the more nervous she got, and the more sort of holes started developing in the story, the more cracks. And then I started realizing that maybe this was only one side of the story, and it was a little more complicated. But either way, she was talking a mile a minute to me and both of my daughters, and then she got up and handed us a jar of pickled beets and kissed all 3 of us on the cheek, got in her truck, and drove off. And we never saw her again.
The stars of tomorrow are brighter every night. If I can remember the rest of your story right, taking this Ford and a couple of credit cards. The Singapore birds and the wedding photographs, the silver, the rings, the dreams, and the broken glass. I'm just a singer, and you're just in my heart. I wish you the best of luck. I wish you a brand new start. Oh, the island slept, and the moon had set. A beat down the highway, tapping the dash in a cool fluorescent flash.
Fantastic. I love the fact she was so insistent to tell her story that story had to find its
Yeah,
correct
right?
backing.
I know. It was incredible. It was probably 30 minutes of machine gun talking, and then that was it.
In terms of then actually writing the music initially with the record, I understand Paul Maroon, who you were in the Walton with,
Yeah.
and you worked on some music together.
Yes.
How did that come about? Was that something he sent to you, or were you collaborating?
Paul lives in Baltimore, and he lives in Montreal in the summers, and he and I have always just had a great system of the way that we work together, where he can send me pieces of music and I sing over them. And so 5 of the songs on this record started with things that he had sent me. And actually, some of them were very old, and I just had them sitting here. And I guess most of those were some of the earlier pieces of music I had lying around. So actually, something like The Old King was a thing he and I had worked on in something like 2012. And I had all these sets of lyrics, and I was trying to sing them on all these things, and I was looking through my old stuff, and I found that. And that was how I just dug it out of the depths of my 1 million, recording 8-track kind of things. And I tried singing on that. And then I thought maybe it was going to work, so I called him and got him to replay the piano part, because the old one was just really sort of trashy sounding. And that's how that song came back to life. And The Garbage Men was a horn sample that Paul had sent me a long time ago that he had made. He's really good at making these really weird sounding samples, like really unusual sounding stuff. So that was just one. He sent me a lot. I tried singing on a lot of other ones. I just haven't had them work out yet, but I've got a lot of really cool things from him too.
Well, let me ask, because one thing I'm really interested in, having heard the record, is how much, it's got your musical DNA on it, but the horizons seem to be a lot broader than perhaps the Black Hours, which obviously, had a nocturnal feel to it. Was there a real sense that you wanted to push where you could go and the sounds that you could use with this record?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's so exciting is like playing all the instruments I'd never played before, and using more electronic instruments and just goofing around in the studio. But since I'm not about to bring in another member of my band, or I'm not about to bring in a friend or something, it's up to me to really push this thing into some new territory. And you can work all day and all night, and every once in a while something sounds like unexpected or works out a little bit better than you imagine it working. No expectations. Yeah, there's no plan at all, which is sort of terrifying when things aren't working out and you're by yourself, and you know that one of these great guys isn't about to come in and save the day. But at the same time, it's exciting when you can, like, Sky lent me his mandolin, and I ended up using the mandolin on a lot of songs. I never in a million years would have thought that was the direction I was going. But you throw everything you can at it, and you try to see what you end up being able to want to listen to again.
It seems a real ambition to the sound on this record. What were your sort of touchstones or influences for?
I wanted to keep sort of a soul sound to it. I was listening to a lot of soul music. I don't know if that comes through at all. It might sound ridiculous, but I was listening to Otis Redding and Stax. I wanted to keep like a classic kind of like strong, loud singing and big banging drums and because to me that stuff just has so much personality, and I sort of feel like I can sing with a lot of volume and strength when I want to, and it's the way that I like to do that doesn't go overboard with just like unrelenting volume or unrelenting. We used to call it man rock in the Walkman, like when it's unrelenting, too manly.
Does it help with songs like, say, Don't Check the Score, where it's so well drawn and obviously feels like it's something you've witnessed, that you can then really deliver on the vocal for that?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta care. For my stuff, I actually have to care. If I don't truly care and really want to sing this and write it and honestly like feel it, and if it's not true or at least truly like interesting to me, then it comes across in the vocals very quickly and is very boring. And so, yeah, with something like Don't Check the Score, I do care. That's a true story and true memories, and it means a lot to me. So I don't, once I care and I sing it and I hear it back the way that I want it done, I don't think any further about trying to connect with someone, because to me that's like, okay, that was what I was going for, and that's the feeling and the sound, and it works with the music. That was another song I tried that singing on about 4 songs because I really wanted it to work, and it finally found its home on that music.
Set you up on a Peter Pan bus, and you came back looking like the rest of us. I know, keep score anymore. I swear.
Sometimes people think when records are self-produced, they're tempted to let stuff slide. But it sounds from the way you're speaking that you're actually quite a tough self-producer.
I'm pretty hard on myself. I am. I ask my wife. I drive her absolutely insane. I do.
One of the things I was interested about with this record, because of the way you've sort of picked the characters for each song, and obviously knowing about you being obviously a very keen reader as well, was there any sort of ways that you any reading you did or any sort of literature sources that you looked at in order to help you tell some of these characters?
Reading is honestly was more important to me than listening to music on this record by a long shot. I listen to new music all the time, every time there's new records out, and there's a lot of new records that I really like actually, but the way that I found myself trying to come up with new ideas and think about things differently was reading novels and poetry. And the one that really jump-started things for me was the My Struggle series by Carl Ove Knausgaard. I would describe it the way that Jerry Seinfeld describes the Seinfeld show when he says it's a show about nothing. And the book is almost a book about nothing. I don't even know if I could tell you what it's about because it's just his recollections of his life. But he's just not afraid to get into tiny, monotonous details and discuss them in a way that's really funny and really personal. And you really get to know this guy, and he does not hold anything back, and he has made a lot of enemies out of friends. And just like getting to know his character through tiny little moments and kind of funny interactions he has with other people and the way he describes other characters was like hugely inspirational to me when I was starting this.
So writing about other people, there's no problem there then, is there?
Right, yeah. I mean, the thought has crossed my mind. I'm not going to lie.
In terms of the album, obviously, it's called The Loves of Your Life, which is a lyric. But equally, is there a sense that there is a sort of concept or a feel across all these songs and these people?
Well, I figured that I was trying to capture the motivation or the drama in all these different people's lives. And most of them have had struggles. And, the more I think about it, all of them have really, that's what a lot of the songs are really about, the people's struggles. You meet plenty of people that have problems that are unpleasant, and the self-wallowing can get on your nerves, and can it's not something that you want to write a song about or think about ever again. You want to stay away from it, But these people were people that had some sort of like fire in them that I found myself rooting for them, or thinking about them at least, or rooting for them, all of them. I thought the title ad made sense to me. And
just obviously it works brilliantly in an audio like this, but the artwork is finished for the record as well, which I think is curious in a really brilliant way. Can you describe it for us?
Thank you. I looked for months. I went to museums, I went to art galleries, I went to photography shows, I went all over New York. I went through to these archives and just looked through just thousands and thousands of images. And I just wanted something that rang right with the title. And to me, that picture, I found that one in an art gallery in New Jersey. And it was taken by Leonard Freed in 2001 in Rome, Italy. And it just looked like the girls were either hearing or telling an interesting story. And I thought, to me, it just clicked.
What I love about the cover is obviously it's black and white photo with coloured text on it, and it could be the Dolce Vita from the 1960s, except she's using a mobile phone.
She's using a flip phone, right?
Which I was desperately trying to place. You're going, that's a Motorola of some kind?
Yeah, exactly. That was the biggest selling point of it for me. It really was, because she looks like she could be 1940. But she's got that flip phone,
which I like the inherent message in that is that it indeed fits with all these stories that there is this often harking back to bygone ages, and things were much different or more dramatic perhaps, whereas that sort of captures this idea that there's drama everywhere all the time in people's lives.
I don't want to be making retro music. I don't want to. I love so much music from so many eras, but while I was making this record, I really cut myself off from so much of the old music I listened to, just because I've listened to it for so many years. And I moved houses while I was making this record, and I built this house. And I didn't listen to other people's music for, honestly, like 9 months. I didn't listen to anything. I read a lot of books, and I just didn't want to have music on in my house. I sort of walked away from it, which was, I'm still analyzing why. I don't know. Maybe I guess it's just because my records were packed up. But I didn't. I don't know.
After their stint as critics for Pitchfork, what do your daughters think of the record?
They say they like it, but, it would sure be a coincidence if they only liked Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and my music, I think it might just be because through exposure at a young age.
Hamilton Leithauser was interviewed by Paul Stokes. The podcast was produced by James Deacon.